Here are the 10 biggest myths about music licensing and the music licensing industry. If you're brand new to this industry and you want to learn how to get your tracks placed in TV shows, movies, and commercials, you need to watch this video because chances are you probably believe one of these myths. Let's start with number 1. Only the big artists out there are the ones getting all the placements. Now, sure, if you turn on your TV, you're probably going to hear some very popular songs that are charting on the radio if that even exists, right? Or charting on Billboard Top 40, and they are certainly getting some big placements out there, some of the big names out there. But does that mean that those are the only artists and bands that are getting all of the placements in the TV film licensing business? Absolutely not. In fact, they're getting the minority of the placements out there. There's only a few of those artists that are getting some of those placements. The vast majority of music that gets placed in TV shows, movies, and commercials are from producers like you and me. Regular Joes with average home studios that can crank out very high quality licensable music. And these days, with the technology that you have at your fingertips, getting those awesome DAW programs and sample libraries and plugins and synths, you can be a massive player in this business. You don't have to have a record deal with millions of fans and platinum records to be a player in this industry. Number 2, you have to have a huge, expensive studio to be competitive in this industry. Absolutely not true. When I first got started in this business almost 10 years ago now, I had a 13-inch MacBook, not a MacBook Pro, a MacBook, and I had a desk made out of cardboard boxes and a long mirror that basically served as my surface for my desk, okay, and headphones. I was using Logic Pro 7 at the time. That's how I got my start. I got into this business with a bare bones studio at home. I don't even think you could call that a studio. I have personal colleagues in this industry that are making their full-time income by producing tracks on their laptops with a pair of headphones, okay? You do not need to have a multi-million-dollar studio setup with professionally treated acoustics in your room. You certainly don't even have to have a $100,000 studio in your home. All you need to do is make sure that you have software and programs that can allow you to create high-quality music. Almost any DAW can be competitive. Fruity Loops, Logic, Pro Tools, Ableton, Studio One, you name it, it all works. You just need to be a great producer and know how to use your software very well, okay? Number 3, this is a really popular one out there. You just have to have the right connections to do well in this business, right? It's not about what you know, but you just have to have a cousin or an uncle, or you have to know somebody who's in this industry to be a player. Wrong again. I got started in this business not knowing anybody, okay? Just going out there and introducing myself and plugging my music out there opened up enough doors for me to start to create first part-time income, and now it's been full-time income for the last 6, 7, 8 years, okay? So this is absolutely possible for you, even if you don't know one person in this industry. You don't have to be well connected to do well. When you want to get started in this business, you're going to go reach out to music libraries. That's what I personally recommend because that's the path that I personally took. Music libraries are in the business of taking those unsolicited demos and submissions from producers like you, okay? They don't expect you to have connections to know people, to name drop in your email. They just want to have high quality music that they can license to their clients. So you don't have to be some well-connected Hollywood hero to have a place in this business. Number 4, you have to make cheesy jingles in the music licensing business. Maybe you did maybe 40, 50 years ago, okay? But this year, no, you do not have to do that these days. The licensing business, because of cable TV and now streaming services and all these other platforms that get your music licensed, you do not have to make cheesy music that you're not excited about, okay? You name it, there is a need for any genre that is out there that can be produced. And it's all modern, cutting edge, awesome stuff, okay? Not cheesy jingles that you wouldn't be proud of or happy to produce, but your type of music, whatever you produce, there is going to be a library and a need out there for it. You just have to find it, okay? Number 5, this is a really common one. A lot of producers think that all you need is just one placement in the TV film world, and then you struck it rich. And that's pretty much all you need to do. You just gotta crank out a bunch of music, get that one placement, and it's gonna turn into tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then you're set. Now, I don't want to be the dream killer here. There are absolutely opportunities where you could get theme songs and really major placements in big motion pictures to get large sync fees up front, 6-figure sync fees, and then royalties on the back end that can result in tens of thousands of dollars in the long run, okay? So that stuff is absolutely out there and it's absolutely possible. But real talk right now, most of us are getting much smaller placements than that, and we're getting mostly background instrumental placements. That's most of what you're seeing happening in the licensing business. There's only so many TV shows, and each TV show only has space for one jingle, or one theme song, right? So you can get lucky and get into one of those situations through one of your music libraries, but chances are you're going to be struggling and pushing out a bunch of music and getting a bunch of different placements and various TV shows, maybe multiple TV shows, right, simultaneously. And each one of those might not be huge amounts of money, but you stack up enough of these smaller placements and you start to see full-time income, okay? So it's one of those myths out there that a lot of producers, again, in that getting rich quick mentality, sort of realize, wow, this is not the business for me because I thought I was just going to be super rich after a couple of months of doing this. No, it takes time. It can take years before you see that kind of growth to get you to that place where you're actually doing this full time. Now, that might discourage you a bit, but what I like to focus on is the fact that it's not super easy to succeed in this business means it's not oversaturated. There's not a lot of producers who have that patience and persistence that can keep with it for that long to become a player in the long term, okay? So if you have that mindset that you know this is gonna be your passion and dedication in life, and you want this to be a long-term career, not just this next 6 months, you can absolutely be an incredible player in this business. And that a lot of times takes just a small amount of additional effort to just keep showing up, keep putting music out there, and keep building up your catalog with the libraries that you partner with, okay? Number 6, a lot of producers think they get to select where their music gets placed in this business. Does not happen. You can choose what you submit to, but a lot of producers, especially when they come to me when they first hear about this business, is they say, hey, Jesse, I could always picture my tracks landing in car commercials, and I think my tracks would be perfect for this kind of show, or maybe this commercial, or this is great trailer music. While it would be awesome if we had that power in this world as producers and composers to just demand or select where our music gets placed, that's not how it works in this business. How it works is you submit your tracks to a music library. They either say yes or no to what you've submitted to them, and then they shop those tracks to their clients, okay? So their clients can be people who put together advertisements, commercials, trailers, motion pictures, reality TV shows, competition shows, you name it. Any type of client can sign on to these libraries looking for music to put into their productions, okay? It's ultimately up to that client to decide how the music gets placed, which tracks obviously get selected. That's why I think you really need to make sure that you're producing licensable music and very relevant music to the library that you're submitting to, because you could put out 12 awesome tracks, get it to a library, but if they're not really relevant to the clients that library has, they will sit on the shelf and you will not get any placements. The reason why I know that is because I've personally made that mistake in my career. Don't waste your time and energy and creative effort on that kind of music. Make sure you're making licensable music. It's a really important thing. Number, what are we on? 7. You can just submit the tracks that are just sitting on your hard drive. So a lot of producers who've been making music for many years think, well, I have 50 tracks sitting right here. If libraries just need music, I'll just submit all 50 to these libraries. And really, really bad move. Why? Because you've probably been producing music in your life up until now that you thought would be on the radio or maybe for other artists, hip hop artists, singers to get on top of. So you've been producing music with the idea of it being consumed by the public, by fans, by consumers out there. That's usually how your mindset has been with your music. When you make the switch to music licensing, which I do think is one of the last places where you can create full-time income for yourself, you have to think about your music in an entirely new way, okay? We call this production music in this industry, okay? That means the music you make needs to be available and useful for productions. This is rocket science, right? So for TV shows, movies, commercials, anything that needs music, your music needs to be specifically composed and tailored and mixed. And you also need to deliver alt versions of your mix and stems and all this stuff to make sure that it's all usable by the clients that want to license it, okay? So it requires a completely different approach in making music. Now, that doesn't mean that maybe you could take those 50 tracks, bring them back up, load them back up in your DAW and adjust them a bit to make them a lot more licensable. But just going ahead and throwing up 50 tracks that you made for like rappers 4 years ago, you're gonna get rejected. I'll tell you that right now. You're just not gonna be considered as seriously as some other producer who has taken the time to realize what they really need to be doing to be competitive in this business, okay? Music libraries don't just need beats. They can get beats anywhere. They need licensable music. That is the stuff that is sometimes really hard to come by because a lot of producers just don't know how to do it. Number 8, You have to copyright and register your tracks when you get started in the licensing business. First of all, let me cover some more confusion about this copyright issue. It's one of the more commonly misunderstood topics in the music business at large, but specifically in the music licensing business. Just so you know, a copyright is not something the government gives you when you register your track with them. You create the copyright yourself the minute that you put an idea of yours into a tangible form. So if it's just an MP3, a WAV file, even if you just have a session, you haven't even bounced it yet, but you can actually point to it in a certain either a digital or a physical space and say, this is my musical idea. Now you've created a copyright. So you can distribute it, reproduce it, you can sell it, you can do whatever you want. Granted that you're not stepping on somebody else's copyright by ripping somebody else's song off, right? Or music off. When people talk about copyright, what they're probably referring to is sending your track to the Library of Congress, which doesn't give you a copyright. What it does is it gives you a receipt that the government has received your notice that I've created this copyright. I would like you to help me legally protect myself in the event that somebody wants to infringe upon my rights. That's what you're getting when you pay that fee and send it off to the Library of Congress. Also, registering your tracks with ASCAP or BMI, which will be ultimately responsible for paying you your royalties. A lot of people think you have to register those tracks before you submit to libraries to make sure that things are registered. And another misinformation or another myth out there that a lot of people believe. When you get your tracks accepted into a library, they will be taking your tracks to register it on your behalf. Now, why would they do that? Why shouldn't you just do it? Well, because they're usually going to be taking a portion or maybe all of the publishing side of the royalties. You should be keeping the writer side because you're the writer, but in many ways they will become the publisher. So when they register the tracks and accept them from you, they're going to associate their publishing name with their publishing company with your tracks when they upload those to the PROs, okay? So if you went and uploaded your tracks and put it up on ASCAP or BMI's website and then submitted the tracks on, they would say, well, if these are already registered, we're gonna have to now retitle them and re-register them as if they were new songs because you didn't include our publishing company on your original registration. So you're basically just wasting your time if you're registering tracks before they're in some catalog or in some library. So usually you're going to want the library to take care of that. I'd say 99% of the time they're going to have themselves take care of that. Your job is to log into your account and just make sure that they did associate you as the writer for those tracks that got accepted, okay? Because mistakes happen. Sometimes interns are in charge of making registrations happen, and I've seen so many problems with this process that you need to do your due diligence and log back in every maybe month or two. Make sure the tracks that have been accepted by libraries are showing up in your account and not just slipping through the cracks, because if your track isn't registered, you're not getting royalties. Is a really important thing. Number 9 is a really popular one. The best days of music licensing are over. A lot of producers think, well, now that you have streaming services and you have YouTube and you have all these other platforms that aren't really paying as much for the royalties, that the good old days of getting started in the music licensing business are just over. They were probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it's not worth it getting started right now. I full-heartedly reject that notion, and here's why. Nobody saw cable coming, right? Cable blew up in the 90s. And before then, you had, a handful of TV stations, 3 or 4 stations. You had really not much choice in terms of the different types of TV program that was out there. And if you were going to get a song placed, you had very, very few options to get that out there, okay? Once cable blew up, and now you had 50, 100, 200, now there's thousands of channels out there and different programming, different shows that now you can get placed. It completely allowed this industry to be born and to allow producers like myself to actually create full-time income for myself and for you to potentially create a full-time income for yourself, okay? This thing blew up out of nowhere and it completely revolutionized the TV industry, okay? So producers, yes, and let's not get it twisted. Money was great, lots of opportunities. Not a lot of producers were into the business. So obviously I would say that in many ways, yes, like some of the big golden days were that sort of late 90s, early 2000s era. But if you think that one little fluke of the cable industry blowing up is it, like meaning there's not going to be another revolution or an incredible blossoming of new opportunities to get your music placed, I don't know what to tell you, because that's not how history works, okay? You don't get one tiny fluke like that and then that's it. The music licensing are available, or the ability to make a living from your music is just gone forever. Has the ability to make music from living for a living ever just disappeared completely, even with all the technological ups and downs that we've had? You know, you've lived probably through Napster. You've seen what happened with file sharing and all the labels that went down because of that, and all the artists that were struggling from that. I don't know if you've been seeing recently, revenues are clicking back up, okay? BMI just recorded record revenues from licensing, same with ASCAP. And with streaming services, artists are now starting to see some of that money come back. So everything is on an uptick right now, and now you're seeing that you have streaming services, virtual reality companies, different experiences happening, different streaming services available, and all these new places to actually get music licensed and to start earning new revenue streams from them, okay? That is what's happening right now. I want to be here. I want to be on the forefront of all these awesome changes, and I choose to embrace these changes because I think there's going to be bright days and a bright future ahead of us. Now, if you just don't feel that way, then you should probably move out of the way. This is not the industry for you, and you can still be a wet blanket wherever you are, okay? But for those of us who choose to be optimistic and choose to see the potential and the opportunities that are in front of us, we will inherit this industry. This will absolutely be our industry to take, okay? And last but not least, this is a really, really popular one. I actually did a video about this on my channel before. The industry is just too saturated to succeed. The word has gotten out too much. There's too many producers that are doing this. It's just not worth it, and there's really no space to get involved. Why even try? Again, kind of a Debbie Downer, pessimistic point of view. Not kind of, definitely. Here's what I say. You can make that statement that this industry is too saturated about every single industry on planet Earth, right? So if you want to be a lawyer, aren't there too many lawyers? Yes. I want to be a real estate agent. Aren't there too many real estate agents? Definitely. I want to open up a restaurant, but there's tons of restaurants in your city. Well, why would they need one more, right? I don't care what you want to do. You can talk yourself out of it by saying, well, there's probably too many around. I don't think there's any space for me. So it's not true, right? So right off the bat, I think you can agree with me that that's just kind of one of those nonsensical sentiments. It doesn't really make sense, right? It's not even true. But what people do is they use that to talk themselves out of getting started. Okay, so that way they can let themselves off the hook for saying, well, I would have succeeded and I would have gotten started, but it's just too saturated. So it's the same thing. I would have been a lawyer. I would have been a real estate agent. I would have opened up that restaurant, but there were way too many out there. So I decided it's not really worth my time or money or effort to go for what I really want to do. Don't be that person. You really will have regrets later in life if you sit on the sidelines because you gave yourself that kind of an excuse. Because you know right now, looking at me, that is not a valid excuse because you could use that for anything you want in life. Absolutely not true in the music licensing business. Kind of for what I said before, it takes a long time to succeed. It is for those who have a long-term mindset, who can persistently show up and deliver high-quality music consistently. A lot of producers are excited about this business. Not many can stick around after a couple of years. Why? How do I know that? Because I saw a lot of my colleagues drop out after a couple of years because they didn't see the results that they wanted. They weren't seeing the growth fast enough. And so they decided, well, I got bills to pay. I got to get out. And hey, if you have bills, you got a family to feed. I totally sympathize with that. I understand that concern. But if you want to be one of the few that make it past all of those obstacles in the beginning, you have to just put your head down, get in the studio and commit. You have to make that commitment. Even when you face rejection, even when you get libraries that say no to you, you don't get a placement, or a royalty check is like underwhelming or disappointing or non-existent. Every professional goes through all those moments of doubt, but the difference between a professional and an amateur is the professional says, what can I do to get past this? I have to get past this. There's no other choice. The amateur hangs up his headphones, sits on the couch, plays video games, watches Netflix. You know the right path for you. You know whether or not this industry is going to be a good for you. I bet just watching this video right now and seeing these myths sort of being debunked right here in front of you, I think you have a pretty good sense of whether or not this is going to be a good fit for you and your temperament and the way that you think and the way that you produce and how your energies sort of line up with your music producing, okay? If you want to get started, if you're interested in learning how this industry really works, if you want somebody to coach you along, to give you a little bit of guidance and to potentially give you feedback on what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, you need to enroll in my free course, okay? So the link is right below this video, and once you sign up, you're going to get instant access to the full gamut of exactly what somebody who's been in this business for 10 years would tell a 10-year-old me what to think about when you're getting started in this business, because this is the kind of stuff that nobody really warned me about. Nobody told me about. I got some guidance. I got some instruction when I first got started, but there are a lot of pitfalls and mistakes that I made because nobody sort of gave me the straight and narrow path of like, don't do this, don't do that. Just keep doing this. Even though it might not seem like you're doing the right thing, in the long run, you're going to start to see those results tick in. That's just not out there. There's just very few people out there that are giving you guys that kind of advice and that kind of feedback. And when I saw that there's also a lot of misinformation out there, including these 10 myths that get passed around on various places online, I wanted to create this channel because I want to make sure that there's a place for somebody who's not just talking about the theoretical aspects of how this industry works, but actually is in it. This is what I do still every single day. I produce music for my music library partners, music supervisors that I've been working with for years, and I still get new placements. So this is what I live and breathe every single day, have dreams about, right? And so I know what's going on in this business, and I know the pitfalls that you're potentially going to run up against when you get started. So I'd like to help you, give you that light at the end of the tunnel, give you that hand, that helping hand to let you know, and that encouraging hand really to say, you can get through this, you can absolutely do this, but here's realistically, honestly, what it's going to take. And that's what this course below will absolutely help you do. So make sure you don't miss out on that. Click on the link below and you'll get started right away.